Module 5, Lesson 2 deals with numerical expressions. The textbook says you have a content objective of students will write and evaluate numerical expressions, and it has a suggested pacing guide of 90 minutes, so this might just be a 2-day lesson, so let's get started. The cost for admission at some events, like the circus, can be different for people of different age groups. For example, the cost of an adult ticket might be greater than the cost of a student ticket. I always thought that they should take and let adults go free to a lot of these things, because the only reason they're actually going is for their kids and to support them. So let the adults go free, just pay for the kids to show up. Suppose the admission to the circus costs $16 for adults and $8 for the students. Describe the steps you can use to find the total cost for 3 adults and 8 students. These are the kind of things we're going to learn how to do in this lesson. Now we're going to start off with a whole bunch of vocabulary. First off, a numerical expression is a combination of numbers and at least one operation, such as that operation they show you there. To evaluate a numerical expression, you find its value. So in other words, you solve it or simplify it as best you can. A numerical expression can be evaluated using the order of operations. The order of operations are rules that tell us which operation to perform first when more than one operation is used. That's another vocab term. This guarantees that the same value of the numerical expression is found each time the expression is evaluated or solved. And evaluate, they defined it there. Evaluate's a fancy mathematical word, or nerd way of saying solve that thing. Now we've already covered the order of operations in previous lessons, and it says to simplify expressions inside of grouping symbols such as parentheses. That would be the P in PEMDAS. Step 2, evaluate powers. That would be the E in PEMDAS. Step 3, multiply and divide in order from left to right. That would be the M and the D in PEMDAS. And finally, 4, add and subtract from left to right. That would be the A and the S in PEMDAS. Now we're going to watch an animation to learn how to simplify a numerical expression using the order of operations, something we've actually already done.
Evaluate the expression 6 squared minus 12 divided by 3 plus the quantity 14 minus 9 times 2. Use the order of operations to determine which operation to perform first. First, look for any grouping symbols, such as parentheses.
P.
Simplify the expression inside the parentheses. 14 minus 9 is 5. Next, find the value of all powers.
E for
6
exponents.
squared is 36. Then multiply and divide in order from left
M
to
and
right.
D.
Start with the leftmost operation first, division. 12 divided by 3 is 4. Then multiply. 5 times 2 is 10. Finally, add and subtract in
A
order from
and S.
left to right. Start with the leftmost operation first, subtraction. 36 minus 4 is 32. Then add. 32 plus 10 is 42. The expression simplifies to a value of 42.
Now I do apologize. I honestly thought we had done order of operations already when I did this lesson, but that was my 7th grade classes we did. So let's take a minute and talk about PEMDAS and how it works. PEMDAS is the abbreviation or an anagram, acronym, something like that for the order of operations. You've got P, come on baby, let's work. You got P, E, M, D, A, and S. And we usually refer to this as please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, although there's other different little rhyming things and whatnot that people have come up with to help remember. The please stands for parentheses. Now the textbook referred to that as grouping symbol, and I think I just totally misspelled parentheses, but that's okay. I'm not going to focus too hard on that because I want instead to focus on other things. But parentheses are all grouping symbols, and you're going to learn more about other grouping symbols beyond parentheses later on, but at our level, we're just going to do parentheses. The E is your exponents, and along with exponents, it also represents radicals, but we're not really going to deal with radicals in 6th grade either. Then we're going to take the M and the D and we're going to put them together. You do this all in one step from left to right. Multiply and divide from left to right. And then the A and the S, they also go together in one step. Aunt Sally means to add and subtract from left to right. Now hopefully we'll have a better lesson in 6th grade on how to do this, because the lesson they gave us in 7th grade, it was pretty bad. But I think that we can work together and figure out how to do this really well and get you all prepared to be very accessible for the order of operations and using PEMDAS, or please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. I mean, wow. They're not even trying to start you guys off easy. They went ahead and slapped you full tilt with a really good, juicy problem. So let's take and dive into it. Remember we talked about please excuse my dear Aunt Sally and PEMDAS, and that's exactly what we're going to be dealing with in solving this problem. And the please stands for parentheses. So on that problem, we need to look for any parentheses that have operations inside of them and solve those parentheses. And we have that right here in the 6 plus 4. That's located inside parentheses. So we're going to take care of that 6 plus 4 first, and you can see right there 6 plus 4 became this 10 right here. Now they did it across. I don't like doing it across, and I like going down. I think it flows a lot easier with the eyes. You're going to see everything else they do, they go down. So why do they have to take that first step and go across and make it all complicated looking? So now we're just looking at this part right here, and the next part of PEMDAS, that's your E, it stands for exponents. Of course, the exponent is 3 squared. 3 squared is 3 times 3, otherwise known as 9, and you can see that happened right here. 3 squared became 9. And then in PEMDAS, you have my dearest. My dearest is your M and D. It stands for multiply and divide from left to right. 9 times 10 is multiplication. That gave us 90, so that part came right here. And then from there, we have Aunt Sally, which is add and subtract from left to right. Now, even though it said add first, working from left to right, subtraction came first, and 100 minus 90, that's going to end up being 10. And then that 2 came down right there, 10 plus 2, that became 12. So you would take and put in 12 for your final answer. It's a fair bit of work, but if you follow your order of operations, it's not that hard. I would encourage you on your homework and on your tests to write PEMDAS, PEMDAS, as a reminder of how to solve these problems. All right, boys and girls, this one's on you. It looks scary, but if you use PEMDAS, it really isn't bad. Stop the video and do it. Now, of course, first I want to talk about that word evaluate. Evaluate, we've discussed before. That's just a fancy mathematical nerd word for solve that sucker. So I'm going to write my PEMDAS, and first thing I'm going to do is look for parentheses. I have a set of parentheses right here, which is 6 minus 2. Now, something I need to point out is that everything else has to come down. You can't just bring down a piece. You've got to bring down the entire problem. I know it's more writing, but that's the way big kids do it, and it keeps you from losing numbers. When you lose numbers, you get wrong answers. When you get wrong answers, you lose points on tests, and then you cry and tell your parents what a terrible person I am. All because you didn't bring down the numbers like I told you to. 6 minus 2, that's going to become 4, and that's the part we did right there. Everything else is going to come down. Divided by 2 cubed plus 1. Next, I'm going to work my exponents. My exponents is going to be right there, 2 cubed, so everything else comes down. 20 times 4 divided by 2 cubed. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8, so that's become 8 plus 1. And now it's time for me to multiply and divide from left to right. So 20 times 4, that's going to end up being 80 divided by 8 plus 1. Now we got a division working from left to right. 80 divided by 8, that's going to become 10 plus 1. And from there, we're going to finally get to good old Aunt Sally. 11 plus 1, add and subtract from left to right. 10 plus 1, I'm sorry, is going to give us 11, which will be our final answer. Come back over here, type in our 11, check it. That's all there is to solving the problem. There wasn't any hard math to do in it, no scary calculations, no decimals or fractions, just very basic calculations that you have to do in a very specific way. Write PEMDAS on every problem and underline each part as you do it. But what if they gave us something super scary looking like this, where they took and put an exponent inside the parentheses? Well, when they do that, what you do is you apply the entire rules of PEMDAS inside the parentheses, and then you go outside the parentheses. So inside our parentheses right here, we've got 8 squared divided by 2/5. And in doing that, we're going to have to take and follow the PEMDAS rules. So inside parentheses, P is PEMDAS, or parentheses, there's no other parentheses inside. E is exponents. There are exponents inside, and that means we have to take care of that 8 squared first. 8 squared is 8 times 8, otherwise known as 64. And then inside the parentheses again, we've got to take care of the my dearest, multiply and divide from left to right. 64 divided by 2/5, that's a keep, change, flip thing. And when you keep, change, flip, which they didn't show very good work here, I'd like to see more work than this, they got 160. From there, the inside of the parentheses are done. They held on to the parentheses, but there's no reason to. They could have just wrote 160 without parentheses there, and it would have meant the same exact thing. Now we're going to do my dearest outside, multiply and divide from left to right. 160 times 2, that's going to be 320. Check that. And then 5 plus 320, well, that's going to be 325. So your final answer is going to be 325 for that problem. Now, that's a little bit scarier looking, but I'm confident you can handle it, and you're going to get an opportunity to handle a problem just like that on this extra example. And there's your problem. Go ahead and pause the video, work it out on a piece of paper, and then I'll show you how to do it when we come back. So did you get the right answer when you worked it on your own? Let's see how I would do this. Now, first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to write PEMDAS twice, because I've got operations inside my parentheses and outside my parentheses I'm going to do. So first, I'm going to take care of the inside of my parentheses. So my parentheses is going to be P. There's no additional parentheses inside. But after that, I do have the E for your exponents right here. So my new line is going to be 48 divided by parentheses 2 times 2 is 4 times 2 is going to be 8. That came from right there. Divided by 1/2 minus 1.7. Next, inside my parentheses, I've got my dearest, multiply and divide from left to right, which I do have division in here, so I'm going to rewrite that again. 48 divided by, and then I'm going to keep, change, flip, so that's going to give me 8 over 1 times 2 over 1 minus 1.7, and keep going with that. That means divided by 8 over 1 times 2 over 1, that's going to be 16 over 1, otherwise known as just good old 16, minus, not divided by, minus 1.7, and that came from those two right there. And then my parentheses are gone, so I don't even have to worry about that, Aunt Sally. I've also already taken care of the parentheses. That was a gone part. And then now I'm going to look for exponents. I don't have any exponents to deal with. Do I have any multiply and divide from left to right? I absolutely do. That's going to be right here. 16 divides into 48 3 times minus 1.7. And now from that, I'm going to go on to my Aunt Sally, add and subtract from left to right, which is going to leave me with a positive 2.3 for my final answer. Jump back over here, put in the 2.3, check it. Uh-oh. Should be a 1.3, I do believe, actually. I think I got ahead of let my brain get ahead of my mouth. There we go, mouth get ahead of my brain, I should say. So it does check. It really is not that hard of a problem to do. It's just a little time consuming, and you got to remember, do your PEMDAS inside the parentheses, and then do your PEMDAS outside the parentheses. Now this is where we're going to stop part 1. We only have, 5 resources, really 4 resources left to go. So part 2 hopefully won't take us very long. Come back and watch it so you know exactly how to do everything on your homework tonight.